South Carolina, but not right now. Not up in New York.
You're up in New York?
Mm-hmm.
All right, there we are. Sorry about the technical issues, guys. We got a storm and stuff coming out over us tonight, but we're going to make it through this live. We're here for you guys every single Friday, so make sure you guys show up and ask your questions. Let us know if there's any topics you guys want us to cover. Today, we are talking all about the importance of saying no. And see, I know that we've talked about boundaries and stuff in the past, but I think that we really want to kind of home in and target like why it's so important to say no. And I know that like human nature in everybody, especially with these nice guys and stuff like that too, the nature is just to say yes to everything. We want to make everybody happy. We want to keep everybody happy. We want to make sure that everybody has everything they need and stuff too, whether it detriments us or not. And so we need to make sure there's no sound. Sorry, we got a message here that says there's no sound. Give me 1 second to make sure.
Hold on. No, I can hear you.
You got it? Cool. Okay. We're good.
My volume is down.
We're all good. Okay, cool. Anyway, so basically the whole point is why it's so important to say no. I realized all of this stuff. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. So why it's so important for us to say no. I don't think that a lot of us really realize why it's so important for us to say no. A lot of us, like I said, we want to make everybody happy. And so we don't realize that we're detrimenting ourselves when we have to say yes all the time, because we're actually giving our time, our effort, our energy away every single time we say yes to something. And so we have to pick and choose these things. I realized this when I got into business, because I remember back when I first started out, like I wanted to make all my clients happy. I wanted to make sure they had everything they needed. I wanted to make sure that they got everything done. But the thing is we overcommitted to a lot of things in the beginning, and it made it so that we couldn't meet the expectations later on. So later on, they would expect that we were going to say yes to everything. And so they would just come to us with things. And as soon as we said no, that's when the expectations started to slip. And that's when the relationship started to get messed up. It's the same thing in every single facet of your life, wherever you're working, whoever you're with, whatever relationship you're in, family, friends, it doesn't matter. You start to burn those relationships when you get in the habit of saying yes all the time, and you don't really keep yourself in mind. And so that's the thing too, is you just start to detriment yourself. What do you have? What are your thoughts on that, Jared?
Yeah, man. I kind of fell in the same thing. I would say recently, I really started grasping this probably when I was, 42, 43. And it's centered around business in that I had too many businesses. I always couldn't in this part for business, I couldn't say no to an opportunity. But then I started realizing I'm spread so thin. And this is what you and I talked about years ago, and how I've been slowly closing off businesses that, just aren't serving me. And I've noticed more people like, hey, have you thought about going into here? You'd be great at it. And for a business standpoint, saying no is something that you have to do. You have to kind of stay on your own path and see it through.
Absolutely.
And I notice a lot of business owners, we use the term serial entrepreneur, and that's just to me always a buzzword for that they're not committed to one industry. They start noticing slumps and then they jump into another one. And I was guilty of this too, guys. I'm not
absolutely same. Yeah.
I'm not blasting you at all. And it finally took me some relationships, but really in business to understand this is like, you can't kiss all the girls. You have to hone in on one, maybe two businesses and just focus on that. And don't let outside parties come in and say, hey man, you should try this. Or have you thought about this? Having that boundary of saying no and just doing what's best for you and this business that you have. And it flips into relationships. I mean, I did a video on this. I think it got posted, right?
Yeah. Just the other day on Wednesday. I'll make sure that we have the link below.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be your people pleaser, and one of my favorite lines I've heard are people pleasers only generate takers. And it's 100% true.
Right.
The more you're in the habit of saying yes to people, the more they're in the habit of asking you. And once you kind of realize that you're taking away your own power, your own energy, the own stuff that you need to do, just to please somebody or just to help somebody that they don't really need your help. They just want you to do it. I started realizing that, and after my divorce, getting into new relationships, I was that guy that just wanted people to like me. I wanted her to like me. I wanted, in this situation,
Right? Yeah.
and I would just say yes to everything. I was basically your beta bitch. I mean, it took. I blossomed late in life, guys, into this person maybe that you see now, but it did take me a while. It's about to 42, and I started realizing that the power of no, 2 letters, it's such a superpower. You can just say no, nope, mm-mm. It's such a way, and now I'm in such a habit of it's not going to serve me directly or my loved ones. It's a no. And I did that for me, for my own boundaries, and it's been amazing.
Right.
Yeah, you piss off people, but they kind of understand if they can just learn to do it themselves and get that rescue role model, mindset that I had. Just do it yourself, or learn to do it yourself. You don't need me. And so that's what I learned about it, is just that power of saying no. I've gotten so much more free time. I'm a little bit more focused on what it is I need to do, and don't really have that worry of, oh, this person I said no to, do I even give a shit if they like me? No.
Well, that's the thing too, though, is like people are going to test your boundaries. Like,
Yeah.
It's just human nature to test other people's boundaries. You want to see how far you can get, what you can get away with. This starts in early childhood. We start to see what we can get away with at school. We start to see what we can get away with friends. We start to see what we can get away with at home. And really, you're always just kind of testing boundaries just to see where those lines are. And when you're with somebody who's not used to having their boundaries tested, or maybe who's not assertive enough to really push those boundaries out, we call those people pushovers, right? They're always just kind of pushovers. They're always just nice guys that just do things just to make sure everybody stays happy. They don't like conflict. They think that it's always going to cause conflict. But here's the thing. You're going to have way better relationships if you can protect your boundaries. If you can just say no to these things, because that's the thing, is if you're always used to saying yes, like you say yes to this, you say yes to that, you just do this, you just do that, they're going to keep going. They're going to keep asking for things. They're just going to want more and more and more. Like there's this old book I remember from my childhood. It was called Give a Mouse a Cookie. And if you give a mouse a cookie, well, now he's going to need a glass of milk to wash it down with. Yeah. Well, now he's going to need a nap. Well, now he's going to need this. And now he's going to need that. And it just keeps going and going and going, right? As soon as you turn them down, they're going to go, oh, what happened? What's going on? What's the problem? Why are you saying no now? Now the relationship is burned. And so that's the biggest issue. I realized that in business, like I said, because one big thing, I was watching Alex Hormozy video the other day, actually. He was talking about this a little bit, what his old businesses. Like he was talking about how he had Gym Launch.
Yep.
And then he had like 9 other businesses that he was focused on. And he says this changes at every single phase. Because he says, like, when you're at dead zero, well, you got dead zero opportunities. When you're at $10,000 a month, you got $10,000 a month opportunities. Mm-hmm. When you're at $100,000 a month, you got $100,000 a month opportunities. Once he made it up to $20 million a month, he realized, okay, well, now we've got 20 million opportunities right here. And so those are the big things that you look at that and, well, that's a great opportunity. I could definitely make a lot of money from that. But it takes focus away from your main thing. He's like, okay, so I had these other 5 businesses that made me $37 million by the next year. But he's like, I could have made $40 million in my one business if I would have just focused on the one business. It gets harder and harder and harder to say no the farther that you go. He talked about the Matrix, actually. He talked about the woman in the red dress.
Yeah.
And how that's the shiny object syndrome, right? That's exactly what she represents. And he's like, that woman changes at every single phase. You got the $10,000 per month woman. You got the $100,000 per month woman. She gets harder and harder and harder to say no to the higher that you go. And this is true in every single facet of life, too. I remember on my agency coaching call yesterday, I was coaching some of my agency owners yesterday, and I was telling them the importance of maintaining their scope. And what that means is, like, when you actually agree to a contract with somebody, you agree to take on their work, you agree to do their marketing, you agree to do a website, whatever, you set a scope at the very beginning, and you set those expectations, and you say, okay, this is the deliverables, this is exactly how long it's going to take us, this is exactly what you can expect, and then you stick to that scope. You don't do anything outside of that scope. If you didn't agree to a logo, you don't do a logo. If you didn't agree to banner images, you didn't agree to the marketing, Facebook ads, you don't do those.
Right.
If they want those things, that's great, cool, charge for them. You have to charge for them. You have to let them know that, okay, I can do that for you, but I'm going to have to charge you more for that. Yeah. And so then they start to say either yes or no, but they understand from a business standpoint, okay, this is okay that he needs to charge for that. That makes sense. You got to do that from the get-go, though, because the problem is if you agree to do the logo, but then you don't agree to do the Facebook ads, they're going to, okay, well, why, you did this, but why didn't you do this? And then you start to burn the relationship, and then the expectations are shattered. And then you can't work together anymore. And the same thing's true in every single relationship in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. You can even say, I always kind of look at it as we talked about the drama triangle and how each person comes into a situation that creates drama. You have that rescuer role, you have the victim, and then you have the persecutor. Well, you don't have to enter any of those by saying no. You don't have to enter into that. You can choose not to be the victim. You can choose not to be the rescuer. Both of them I'm saying no to. You can choose, I'm not going to be the persecutor in here. Because even when you enter in relationships that way, or you insert yourself into a drama, say it's family drama. Let's say, your dad's fighting with your older brother about something. You don't have to insert yourself. That's also the power of saying no. Like, that's between you guys. And a lot of people will insert themselves into situations or circumstances that just don't concern them. And they do it. I feel bad for my brother, or I feel bad for my dad, or I feel bad for this girl who just broke up with her boyfriend, and I'm going to come in and save the day. Well, again, if you just said no, I'm not entering into this. I value my peace. Get at me when dad and my brother and my dad have made up. Get at me when this guy is completely out of your life. That's also the part of saying no, but you don't physically have to say, yes, I'll do it by just entering into these types of situations. You are saying yes. And then there's an expectation on you to actually be that role that you chose to be. So you got to be careful of that too, on just external circumstances that you find yourself in. You have the ability to walk away from those too and just say no.
Absolutely.
And keep your peace. I found the older that I get, I'm 48 years old, I value my peace way more than anything else now. And so when my daughter, I love her, I'm a single parent, so she doesn't have that mother role, but she's 22, and I have to kind of listen to some dramas that she has about this boy and that boy. And to a degree, I kind of have to enter into that because obviously my social contract with her is I'm her father. That's kind of my job. But to other people, I don't need to hear them vomiting out their information. I have the choice to say, hey, listen, this is your problem. I'm not here to listen to it. I'm here for whatever the other reason is. I don't need to listen to this. Get up with me when when this is fixed. Because I used to be a fixer by nature. I used to want to fix every situation, every circumstance in my life for other people. And I just ended up emptying out my own emotional piggy bank and filling up theirs. And then I would just have nothing. I would just be like, oh, God, I had to hear that freaking thing again, or I had to listen to this.
Yeah, shit. You realize you don't even care about it at all. So,
yeah.
I've dealt with that to varying degrees too, yeah.
Yeah, and so even in businesses, it's more like that. If this thing is just too much trouble or it's just not worth my time, then I exit. Like, I'm not interested in it. Relationships are the same way. If a relationship is just not worth my time, it's too much, it costs too much of my peace, then I exit the relationship. I'm unapologetic about it. It's like, listen, I'm good, thank you, but I'm good.
I think a lot of us get into the rut that we just don't want to let anybody down. And so that's the big thing too, is understanding, like, if a relationship is hurting you, you got to exit. You just got to leave. I mean, it's going to be less painful to leave the relationship than it is to deal with it long term.
Right.
And that's true of any relationship. If you got friends who just, aren't serving you, you've got family who just aren't serving you, you've got clients that just aren't serving you, you got to do away with it. You got to cut it off. You can't just keep moving on and on and on with that, because you're just causing yourself misery long term. I realized that with bad clients really early on, but at the same time too, as I got into entrepreneurship and I moved abroad and I started living in Cabo and stuff too, I had old friends from high school. Like, they would call me up and we would go have conversations, and like they would start talking about things that like I just didn't care about. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Like that's not even a concern to me. And the thing is too, is I would start talking about things from my business, and like they just didn't care. They had no clue what I was talking about. Yeah, it's like they just didn't care at all what I was talking about. And so I realized this relationship isn't serving either one of us. I've dealt with it with my mom to a large extent too. Like, she likes to talk a lot of crap. She likes to talk about other people a lot. And I'm always just like, okay, that's great, but like, why are you just sitting in your bed all day thinking about other people? It's like, just stop doing that. And so I had to limit my time there too. It is what it is. You got to do what you got to do. I had to get rid of really bad clients early on because they would just continue. You could never satisfy them. It was always dread trying to think about getting on a meeting with them. I had to get rid of them. And so that was true in every single relationship in my life. I remember even just this last year, my brother and my mom got in a big fight. And my brother tried to drag me into it. He was trying to tell me like, oh, hey, you got to tell mom this. You got to tell mom that. I'm like, I don't want any part of this. And my brother ended up blocking me on Facebook and completely deleting me. And I'm like, okay, well, fine, man. That's your problem. This is my peace. And I got to protect my peace. And I got to protect my boundaries. This isn't something I want any part of. And so I realized, like I said, I realized that with friends, with clients, with family. And like I said, the more that I just kind of cut those relationships off and quit detrimenting myself with it, the more peace I had. And the more I was able to just focus on what I want to focus on, what I want to do. And like I said, it's painful sometimes to get rid of some of those relationships. It's painful sometimes to cut some of those things off. It's really painful when you're so far into 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses that you realize are stretching you in every single direction. And you're going to have to sell this off and sell that off and sell out the partnership and get out of it. Fire everybody, whatever you got to do to get out of it so you can focus on the one thing and pull yourself out of that. That's one thing that Alex talked about too, is his wife, Layla, came after him with that. She was like, hey, this gym launch thing's really working out. These other 5 things you're doing aren't doing anything. And they're just taking all your time and energy. Yeah. She's like, and he's just like, yeah, but like, then I would have to sell the gyms and then I would have to fire everybody. And she's like, well, you could keep doing what you're doing because that's clearly working out. Right. That's what it is, man. You're just creating misery for yourself.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of in that boat right now. You and I had lots of talks about this and some of the other stuff that we're working on now. You kind of even said it in a nice way, but in a business ways is you're gonna have to make a choice here soon, because there's gonna come a time where what we're working on is going to probably dwarf everything else, and I need all hands on deck. And I said, listen, I'm on board. I'm prepared. I'll burn Rome down. And it's not the fact I'm saying no to it. I'm actually saying yes to a better opportunity. And I'm not I'm unapologetic of saying no to situations that are no longer serving me. And that's also business. I have a passion. My passion, is one of my scalp brands. But I'll close that damn thing down tomorrow to help fulfill our collective dreams of building a business that's actually sustainable and can employ a lot of people and have a better impact. And so that's also part of saying no, is looking at it's almost like you can say no to an individual for your own peace, but you can also say no to yourself and your own kind of pet projects or your own, I don't want to say passions, but your own wants for the better of the collective family. And, like I said, with Kim and you, we're all a family. It is a business, but it is a family thing. So we all have to protect each other. So that's another kind of part where you may have to say no to some of the things that you thought were working or you wanted to work, but this is a much better thing. So we need to do this. Got it. And so just having that ability where I just don't think a lot of people are self-aware.
Well, that's the thing too, is like being able to zoom out and see the bigger
Right.
picture too, and like realizing all the variables that are involved with it, and really making the best decision for you long term.
Yeah.
Because we're not, like, as humans, we're just not good at thinking long term. We're always
Mhm.
thinking about right now and how we feel right now and the relationship we're in right now and what's going on around us and how to get out of this. And it's just like, that's the thing, is like when you start to think long term and you start to think about, okay, well, where is all this going? Where is this going to be 5 years from now? Where is this going to be 10 years from now? Who am I going to be 5 years from now? Where am I going to be? What am I going to be doing? It's really hard to think about that and visualize exactly what that is. Like, that's what this program's all about too, is the fact that, like, you got to map out what that looks like for yourself. And you got to really understand, like, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where exactly do you want to be in 10 years? Well, is what you're doing today getting you there? Because if it isn't getting you there, and if you're not moving towards the path that you want to move into, that's the thing, is like, is the job that you're working moving you into the life that you want to live?
Mhm.
Is the relationships that you have around you moving you into the life that you want to be living?
Yeah.
And you really got to ask yourself that too. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can and can't pull ourselves out of. I mean, obviously, like, you can't just drop all your kids and just go live abroad. I mean, there's certain things that we can and can't do. And so it's understanding those things, though, and like how we can move ourselves there long term, when we can think about it long term. Because obviously I can't make everything happen today,
Right.
but I can make everything happen in 5 years.
Sure. And you hit it on the, you said a mouthful there, because a lot of people never see the long game. They only see today, what's in it for me right now, or very short term. They have a goal of whatever, and it's a short term goal. And sadly, a lot of them, once they start moving towards that goal, they get resistance and then they give up. But having that ability still to say no to your spouse. Your spouse says, well, you have a really good job. It's a 9 to 5. You get 3 weeks off. Plus you have a lot of vacation. I don't want you to start this business. Well, you have a choice. You can start this business from 5 to 7 or 5 to 9. You don't have to do it from 9 to 5, but you can start creating action for yourself and knowing that it may take me longer, but still you have to acknowledge that elephant in the room. Your wife saying, you're not doing this. Well, no, I am going to do this, because you're also saying no to that limitation that you're putting on yourself. Like, this is as good as it's going to get. 98% of the people out there, if they look at themselves in the mirror, that's as good as it's going to get for them. It's not going to get better, especially for men. Men, we get worse every year. We get older. If we haven't started our dreams, if we haven't worked towards any of our goals, they get harder to attain, because, as I said, Alex Emozi used to say this, is what young people have on their side is time. They can make the mistakes and they have time to correct.
Truth.
In my age group, 48, I have less time. Now, I do have leverage, of course, on the businesses I have, but it's also saying I do feel I've wasted about 10 years on businesses that it was a short term. I never had a long-term goal with them. My real estate, there was never really a long-term where I wanted to own 10,000 units. I was just kind of day to day going through the grind, and I was an operator in that business. It's not a sustainable model, especially after COVID hit, when the government unilaterally changes contracts on you and basically told you to F off. So I said no to that company. I said no to that. My last bit of real estate's being sold off soon. I get calls every day. Hey, I got this awesome 3-family. You can get it for a song. Nope, not interested. And you have all these opportunities that come up, especially if you've been in various businesses. You start meeting a lot of people, but I don't think a lot of the businesses that get thrown around these days are smart businesses or sustainable businesses at all. And you kind of got to understand that. You kind of got to step back and forget about what the guy in the suit saying you can make $10,000 a month and all you got to do is press this button. You got to say no to those.
It's just marketing.
And the reason why I say no is such a superpower on this is because so many people say yes because it's easy. Your brain's like, I just got to press this button and then just do this, and I make 10,000. And then they buy into it for $59 a month, and they're not making anything. Well, you just said yes to an opportunity that causes you no energy. It's very easy to do. Well, if something's easy to do, it's not worth doing. It never is.
That's the funny thing too, is like even my dad, I've had a lot of friends and stuff too. Like I remember when NFTs were the hot thing and like all that stuff was out, everybody's like, hey, you got to invest $500 a month in NFTs. You got to make sure you're buying all this stuff up. And then it all crashed and those guys shut up real quick.
Yeah.
You didn't hear anything about it after that. And even today, like nobody's buying NFTs. Nobody's doing any of that stuff. I'm not saying it's never going to happen again. I'm just saying that wasn't really the opportunity for me. I said no to it. I'm satisfied with that decision. That's fine. I can only focus on so many things. And the thing is too, is like a lot of people don't, like, you got to be adaptable. So that's the thing too, is like understanding with this new AI revolution and all that stuff coming out, it's going to take some jobs. Like all the automations and stuff that are coming out, people are going to lose jobs over this.
Yeah.
And at the same time too, even if there is a coming recession or whatever it is, I don't know, but I mean, you got to be ready for whatever comes, right? You got to make sure that you can adapt your business and move on and move forward. I don't think that Blockbuster saw Netflix coming. I don't think that, the music industry necessarily saw that everything's going to go online and everybody's going to be using streaming services moving forward and stuff too. And so I don't think that a lot of people back in the 60s really thought the computers were going to take over as much as they were. Yeah. And so you've always got to be able to adapt. There's always new technology coming out. There's always new things happening. And the thing is too, is I think that we have a tendency as people to believe that we have so much time in front of us. Like we feel like we have endless time in front of us. Yeah. When that's not the case. You could die tomorrow. You could die next week. You never know exactly when it's going to happen. You never know exactly what's going to happen. I know of a lot of friends that I've had from high school that are no longer with us. And I thought that they were my age. And I'm like, dude, I don't feel like I'm that old. And I'm like, I just saw this the other day with another friend that I had who passed away. And it happens. And it kind of hits me existentially, right? And so it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't have as much time in front of me as I thought I did. Maybe I really need to be making more strategic decisions. Maybe I can't keep working this job for the next 10 years. There's a lot of different decisions that you have to make for yourself. And you have to be thinking about yourself at every single phase. Like there's 3 versions of you that you really got to be thinking about. There's past you, there's future you, and there's you right now. Yeah. And you right now are in the situation that you're in because past you either did or didn't care about you right now. Right. And so now you got to think from right now, okay, well, me right now, do I care about future me and where future me is going to be? Because if I do, then I need to start making decisions for that person, and that person will be in a whole different situation because of the things that I'm doing today.
Yeah, but think about it. Future you is everybody. Everyone's like, one day I'm going to be a millionaire. One day I'm going to be a CEO. One day I'm going to have that car. But they completely abduct the responsibility and kick the can down the road to the future self. I always found that funny. Every time I talk to somebody, I'm just maybe having a drink with somebody. One day I'm going to do this, or I'm going to start this business. And it's like, you just want to like shake them. Like, you told me this last year, dude. You told me this year before. Yep. And if you pair that with the fact that you're going to die. I just did a video on this, and I don't know if it got posted yet, but it's a little morbid, but this is kind of how I view my life. Like in 100 years, none of this shit's going to matter. For me, in probably 30 or 40 years, if I'm lucky, none of this is going to matter. It's just not. And a generation from there, after my kids have passed, and maybe some of my grandkids, they're not going to know who I am. So why worry about, I can't start this because people are going to make fun of me, or I can't do this because I don't want to lose what I have. You're going to lose the game of life anyway. You're going to die. The game is rigged against you. So do the things that make you the most fulfilled in life, give you the most joy, and say no to the things that are keeping you down, keeping you heavy, keeping you feeling like, I just don't want to do it. Well, then say no. I just don't want to be in this freaking job another 10 years. Well, what can you do about it right now? Don't say someday I'm going to be a CEO. What can I do right now to fix this situation so that when I meet future self, I can give them a high five and be like, fuck, you did it, man. Most people never meet their future self.
Exactly. Well, and the thing is too, is you got to understand, like, that's the nature of goals and striving for goals and stuff too, is the fact that, like, even when you get there, you're still going to feel exactly the same way. Like, you're not going to feel any different. I remember when I wanted to make $10,000 a month, and then I hit $10,000 a month, and I felt exactly the same way. And I remember hitting $50,000 a month, even just exactly the same thing. It's just like that. It just got bigger. There was just more to manage. And so I realized that every single time I hit a goal, like, sometimes I wouldn't even realize that I had hit the goal because, like, I just wasn't really keeping track of it, or there was just so much going on. Yeah. But then I'm like, oh wow, I hit that goal. I'm like, I didn't feel any different. Nothing really changed. My life wasn't different. So that's the thing I'm trying to say here, is the fact that, like, we put our happiness on the other side of so many different things. Like, well, once I have this, I'll be happy. Once I have that, then I'll make the choice to do this and that. And it's like, dude, you're gonna get there. If you ever get there, most people don't. Yeah. If you ever get there, and you're going to be like, nothing changed. It feels exactly the same way. Like, you could get to $1 million a month and nothing changes. Like, you don't change as a person. Like, your life doesn't really change that much. You still keep thinking the same way. You still keep doing the same things. So you might as well just start doing it now. You're not going to lose anything by doing it now. Right. And so that's why you got to kind of make whatever decisions you deem necessary for yourself. Because if you're trying to make decisions for future you, that's the thing. Like I said, you can be really specific. Like, you got to be specific about the timeline. You got to put the goal out there and set a date to it and say, oh, I'm going to do it on this day. And then no matter what, stick to it. That's just discipline. Discipline is what makes all the difference. Discipline is really what gets you where you want to be, because without discipline, you're never going to get there. You're never going to have anything you want. You're never going to change anything. Yeah. And so that's what makes all the difference, is having that discipline, setting the goals, putting dates to it, and just doing it anyway. That's the thing too. When you start going to the gym, is that you got to have the discipline to go to the gym, even on the days that you don't want to go to the gym. Otherwise, you're never going to get to where you want. Mind, body, everything. It's just never going to happen for you.
Yeah, and I think, would you agree that it takes discipline to say no?
Absolutely. It takes discipline.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems to me that it's very easy to say yes, but even though you don't want to do it, it does take practice. Saying no takes practice. It will feel weird in the beginning when everybody around you so used to, like, oh, Jared will do it, or oh, I'll ask Jared. He never says no. Once you first start practicing this and using those new muscles, it hurts. It does. When you see that look in their eye, yeah. Like, oh, yeah. Well, you did it before. I don't know why you're not going to do it now. And I remember starting this and just saying no, even to, like, my mom. Like, you know, there's two other brothers. My older brother, he doesn't live around here, and I'm the only one with kids. And I got my own housework to do, and I travel. All the time in the beginning was, can you come mow my lawn? Can you do this? Can you do this? I'm like, where the F is my younger brother? He's single. What the hell? He would just say no. I'm like, fuck, all right, I got to say no. Like, she has some money. She can hire this out, but what, you know? And I remember she was like, well, you know, my knee's been hurting me. She would start this bullshit, you know, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, listen, I love you, but I got my own shit to do. I got 3 hours off. I'm not doing anything. And it did hurt in the beginning. I remember that. And even like my ex-girlfriends and stuff, I started getting the power. And once I started feeling it, that power, I'm like, no. I was like, Nick sometimes just to say no. Like, you want to go out tomorrow? No. You know, but it does take discipline, and it will feel weird in the beginning, especially if you do have that people pleaser like I did mentality.
Well, that's the funny thing too, is when you start to say no, you start trying to justify it. You start, well, you know, I have too much going on that day, and I'm going to be out doing that. You start over explaining why you're saying no, and it's just like, nobody cares. Just say no. Just say no. You can't do it. You don't have the time. You don't have to. You just simply don't want to. It doesn't matter. Just start saying no, and you'll start to realize that it gets easier and easier and easier over time, and you don't have to justify why you're saying no. It's just no. That's what it is. Yeah. And so I remember, like, dealing with that with with my kids and stuff too, like watching them be all mopey and stuff too. And it's like, no, dude, it's no. It's just going to be no. And it's the same thing with family, with friends, all that stuff too. That's the funny thing about sales too, is when you have a really good salesperson and they start to act like they're your friend and stuff too, they start to build that relationship, which is sales, right? The thing is when you first get into sales, you don't want to hear no. Like you dread no. It's just like it's like this mental blockage. Like you just think that somebody's going to say no as soon as you jump on the call. And so you just start avoiding the calls. You start avoiding trying to get into it. And I remember like all the sales programs I've ever gone through, that's what they try and train you is like, it's okay to hear no. It's okay if somebody says no to you. No means next opportunity. Right. You just keep moving on. It's fine. But once you get really good at sales, it gets really hard for people to say no to you. Now, have you ever been on a sales call with somebody who's really good at sales? And you know you don't want this thing. You know you want to say no, but you just don't want to tell this person no. Right. And so it starts to get really, really hard. And that's when you know you're kind of a pushover. You know that like, okay, well, I have to say no. I need to say no. I should say no. And it's okay if I say no, but it's like it's hard to get to that point as a person too. And like that's the thing. Like I said, if you have a really good salesperson out there, maybe you have a family member who wants you to do something, it is hard to say no. It's like without a doubt hard to say no because we start to overthink it. Then we start thinking, well, if I just do it, then it's fine. And then you'll start doing it again and again and again. You start to push over your boundaries. They start to shovel over your boundaries every turn. And that's just the way it goes. Like you just become a pushover little by little. But it's like death by 1,000 concessions in that way.
It is. Especially in relationships, you know, that's the hardest thing. What are some ways that maybe you've balanced that? You know, there's sometimes you have to say yes, and then there's most times it's fine to say no. How have you kind of learned to balance that?
So for me, like it really just comes down to like, is this something I really want to do, or is it something that I don't want to do? Why do I want to or not want to do it, right? And so it's really understanding, okay, well, do I have the time? Do I have the energy? Is this okay for me just to say yes to it? Right. Like, should I just get it over with? You know, and sometimes that's the case. You got to kind of weigh it. It's case by case, obviously. I mean, like there's times too when I've just wanted to say no. I haven't wanted to go out, but then I realized, okay, well, you haven't been out in a while. You've been kind of sitting around, not doing anything for a while. You might as well just go and do it. Yeah. You have the time, you have the energy, you just don't want to. Right. And so that's the case too. Like, I think that if you just simply don't want to, well, ask yourself why you don't want to. Like, ask yourself what the problem really is. Because obviously, if we have other obligations, we have other things going on, we have to work. We can't put off work. We can't put off the business. We can't put off certain things in our life. We have to say no to things. Like, that's in those cases, we have to say no. Like, you have to understand, like, when you're at work and you know you're going to be at work that day, but your friends are going out and they're going to go to the bar and you're like, dude, no, I'm going to be at work. I'm sorry. I can't do it. That's one thing. It's easy to say no to those things because you have a previous obligation. But then, like I said, if you're at home and you're just sitting around playing video games, you're not really doing anything, and people want you to go out, and it's like, well, is it really going to detriment you to go out? Because there's been times when I've just said, fuck it, I'm just going to go do it. And then I was glad that I did. And I was glad that I actually went out and did it and went and hung out. I felt better after. And so, like I said, I mean, it's really case by case. Sometimes it's okay to say yes. Sometimes it's okay to say no. You got to take it case by case. But it's really being in charge and being in control, because sometimes you'll say yes to something and then it'll be painful and you won't want to do it. Like, I've realized that in business, like when I say yes to doing certain marketing or when I say yes to building a certain website, and then it takes away from all the other things I was supposed to do. And then my other clients start to suffer because I'm trying to get all these other things done. And it's a balancing act through and through.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I started noticing, for me, and it's probably because partially I'm a dick, is I'm always more in default of no these days than yes. And I don't know why. Like, I went so much to yes, and now it's like no. And so I'm an extreme person. I'm always on one end or the other. I'm never really in the middle. So I think part of mine is what you just said. Like, I'll ask, well, why did I say no? And most of the time it's because you're a dick. Okay, fair enough. And then I'll reconsider some things. I'm like, all right, I haven't really seen my brother in a while. All right, I'll go to this event. And so I've noticed that the better I got at no, everything became a no. And so I have to kind of learn on that end too, is not everything has to be a no, and not everything has to be based on an emotion, because I do talk a lot, but if something feels heavy, like you just don't want to do it, well, then that's probably a good reason to say no. Like it feels heavy, like you feel burdened, you have too much work, you have something else you got to do, like you said, you have another obligation. If it feels light, most people say, yeah, you want to go to the park? Sure, yeah, that's cool, whatever. But I've always found that balance to be, for me, I'm always on the extreme end of things. I think that's part of business and the wiring that I have. It's just all or nothing. And so
That makes sense. Yeah.
you want to be careful of that too. If you really start getting into the habit of no, that's probably a good question. Why is this a no? Like, do they really need my help? And is it something that I'm able to help them on? Do I have time? Some of that then you can say yes to, and you're not going to feel heavy about it. Because sometimes I feel heavy by saying no, and I'm like, yeah, I could have done it. It took me 10 minutes. I could have done the damn thing, but I just wanted to be an ass and said no. So, I struggle with that too. I'm that paradox where, I'm supposed to be this coach, supposed to be uplifting people, but a lot of the time I'm like, why? What are we?
That's
What
the
are
thing
we
too.
doing?
Is you got to realize too, like there's a relationship building aspect to this too, and it's like, are you trying to build this relationship? Is this a fulfilling relationship you have with this person? Should I say yes to this person? Is this person somebody I even want to have a relationship with?
Yeah.
Because like I said, I had old friends from high school who would reach out to me and want to talk about certain things. And I just realized I didn't care what they were talking about. They didn't care what I was talking about. And so I can tell you right now, if any of those guys came and asked me to do something, it's going to be a no.
Sure.
It's just absolutely going to be a no.
Yeah.
If my brother, who I haven't seen in 5 years, comes and asks me to do something, all right, cool, let's go do something. Like my brothers were in town for the 4th of July. They were actually down here in Cabo. 3 of them, actually, and I haven't seen them in years.
Wow.
And they were like, hey, dude, do you want to go out to the bar? Do you want to go hang out? Do you want to go out with us tonight? And like, I remember I'm like, oh, man, I really just kind of want to go home and relax.
Yeah.
After the fireworks and all that stuff, too. And then I realized, well, you haven't seen these guys in years. They really just kind of want to go hang out. And I was like, screw it, let's go hang out.
Right.
And I was happy. I took him out to dinner that night, and like we went and ate, and it was a cool night. It was really, really fun. I'm glad I did it at that time. But like I said, it's a case by case kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is this a relationship you're really trying to cultivate? Is this something you're really trying to move forward? It's the same thing in business too. Everything in business is a relationship. Your partners, whoever you're partnered with, your employees, your clients, everything is relationship building. And so you got to realize, is this a relationship I'm trying to build? And so I'm not going to say yes to people who I'm not trying to get further into business with. That's just, I can only say yes to certain things. Like you really have to be conservative with your yeses. You really have to be conservative with your no's. You got to really strategically plan it out. Okay, why is this a yes? Why is this a no? Is this a relationship I'm trying to move forward or not? Is this something I really want to do? Am I going to regret doing this? Because a lot of the time, like I said, it's not really obvious to you at the beginning. Like I said, all my old high school friends, no way. We're not doing anything. That's just not going to happen. Certain clients that I've had and stuff in the past too, no way. There's no way I would even work with them again. That's not happening. I'm not going to do anything for them. And so it's really case by case. Like, is this a relationship you're trying to move forward? Is this something you're trying to build? Is this something you're going to regret long term? So you really got to ask yourself these different things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've always had this. It's always been a rule for me, and what was easy for me is offering money or a loan to friends and family. To me, that was always second nature. No, because I valued the relationship, and I knew if you couldn't pay me, that relationship would be fractured for a while.
Yes.
And so that might be another way to look at it, kind of the way you just described it, is if you say no on a boundary that you have, or sorry, if you say yes on a boundary that you have, even one time, and that person crosses the boundary, that relationship is fractured. It might be able to be rebuilt, but it is fractured. So by you saying no, you're actually honoring that relationship. So that might be a better
Yes.
way. A lot of people have a hard time saying no. Think about it. You're doing it for them and for you, because fences do make great neighbors. Even if you have a lover, they make great neighbors. There's a boundary there and they understand that. In my video, I kind of alluded to that. This girl, I really wanted her to like me. And I started fixing shit around her house. Like the second date, the second time I took her out, I came in and did basically was the maintenance guy. And it was in my video and I was talking about that. And again, the boundary should have been, we're not even an item yet. We're just getting to know each other. She didn't ask me to fix anything, but she brought it up like, oh, I have so much stuff around here to do. I just can't afford this. And then here I am. Well, what do you need? What do you need done? And I was like Captain Sabaho, basically fixing shit and all this. And it fractured our relationship. But again, everything's the man's fault. If I just said, yeah, well, that sucks, I'm sure you can figure it out, good luck with all that. At least there was reciprocity there where I'm not going to fix your crap and there's really nothing else that you can give me, because that's a whole different relationship. Our relationship is based on getting to know each other, not me fixing stuff. So that was the first time I learned it, is in dealing with her, because she was literally the first girl I dated after my divorce. And then at that aha moment, I'm like, oh shit, I screwed this up by being this yes man, by doing all this. And by her asking one time too many about something that triggered me, it wasn't her asking. I was already triggered off of my good deeds, basically. I couldn't say no. But I could say no. So I know that's a roundabout way of saying it, is when you're in a position, whether it's a new girlfriend you're dating or a new boyfriend you're dating or a family member, and you're starting to exercise your boundaries, you're starting to put boundaries into your life, saying no saves that relationship. It actually saves it and it makes it healthier. And if it doesn't make it healthier, it wasn't a relationship to keep. And so you just saved yourself even more heartache. The trash took itself out. Great.
Well, then that's the thing too, is like, is this something that you're trying to get something out of too? Like that's when you kind of start to fall into that nice guy trap too. It's like, am I doing this just to get something in return? Yeah. Am I doing this so they'll owe me something?
Yeah.
And that's true of anybody. Like that's true outside of even like the personal relationships with like women and stuff too. Like that's true with like other men, other friends, other family members, clients, all that kind of stuff too. Am I doing this so they'll pay me more? Am I doing this so they'll owe me a favor? Am I doing this so she'll have sex with me? Right. That's really the traps that we start to fall into too, is the fact that like, why are you doing this? Are you doing this out of something self-serving, or are you not doing this because it's self-serving? You gotta, it's stuff that you really just kind of have to weigh out. Nobody can really answer those questions for you. That's stuff that you gotta think about and reflect on. And is this something I should say no to? Is this something I should say yes to? Because there is a relationship building aspect to all of this stuff. And that's the thing too. Like I said, I realized it with clients majorly. That was really the thing that allowed me to wrap my head around it, was the fact that like I would say yes to certain things to clients because I knew I could do it. I mean, I can do so many things. There's so many things I know how to do. Yeah. And when people figure out that you know how to do it, like I said, I would get in to start running Facebook ads for one business, or I would get in to start running Google ads for another business. And they would see that I had a website portfolio. I'm like, okay, well, can you build me a website? Like, okay, well, that's going to be an extra fee. But at first, it was to a point where like, I'm trying to build this relationship stronger. Maybe they really want to have a long-term relationship here in this business and stuff too. So maybe I should just build the website for them. Yeah. And then the thing is too, is like, well, what happens down the line too? Like, well, the hosting's on my hosting. Should I just start charging them for hosting? Should I just give it to them? There's so many questions that you got to kind of answer. And like, it doesn't really matter where you're at, what relationship it is. Yeah. You got to weigh all these things out. Like, is this worth my time? Is this worth my effort? Because the same thing too, like they have their best interest in mind. You should have your best interest in mind, because you are the only person that will have your best interest in mind. Right. They don't care how hard you have to work to get this stuff done.
Right.
All they care about is that you committed to it. And if you
Right.
committed to it and you don't get it done, well, then the expectations are shattered and the relationship is burned.
Yeah.
And so that was the thing too that I realized early on. And this is what I told my agency owners yesterday too, is the fact that like, if you're going to commit to doing something, you got to charge extra for it. You got to make sure they know there's an extra charge to that, so that if you commit to it, if you can even commit to it, well, at that point, then they know for a fact you're not just doing it, and they're not going to come back to you with this, that. Like I said, give a mouse a cookie. Well, now he's going to need a cup of milk. Well, now he's going to need a nap, and so he's never going to leave.
No, it's 100% true. And, so that was for me, when I came to that realization that I'm not being selfish, I'm actually preserving this relationship, whether it's in business, whether it's a girl, whether it's even my kids. I still have a hard time sometimes saying no to them. I bitch to my girlfriend once in a while because they just don't seem to understand how to do laundry. Like, it's completely foreign to them.
I feel that.
And
Yeah.
they know how, well, they're 22 and 19, and they know how OCD I am. So it's like they'll purposely put the pile in front of the door that everybody comes in as. And I'm like, this is, and so they know me. Your kids are really good at pushing your buttons because they know how you're wired. They're the ones who've been the closest to you. They know how to get to you.
They know they can get away with a lot too, though. Like, what's he going to do about it?
And so there's a point where for a while, I was like, nope, I'm not going to do them. I actually took all their clothes and threw them outside. And then I felt bad. And I'm like, fuck, all right. Well, anyway. So there's still things I got to work on with this. And it's the hardest with family. It's definitely hardest to say no to your kids or to your husband if you're married or your whatever. Those are the hardest no's because you're tied to them the most. And so if you're trying to practice this and trying to get your boundaries going, my suggestion is to test it out is don't start with your family unless it's something that's really weighing on you, where they're really coming on you about something and you're always the person they call. Well, then, yeah, definitely start doing that. But it is hard. I mean, I still struggle with it, like I said, with my kids and just their effing laundry. And I'm their maid sometimes. I'm like a 48 years old. I'm cleaning up. It's just, but there will come a time I tell them one day, you guys are going to wake up and I'm like in another state, completely like, oh, I live here now. Good luck. I'm done.
Well, it's really interesting how it changes based on the relationship dynamic too. I mean, I've seen it with my grandparents. I've seen it with my parents and stuff too. Like my dad does everything for my mom because he knows that if he doesn't do it, she's going to freak out. He wants to avoid it. And he's just like, okay, let's just do it so she doesn't freak out. Grandma and grandpa the same way. But when it comes to my brothers, like they'll come down here and they'll stay at my mom's house. My mom gets so fed up with them for certain things. And like, they don't care. Like, she's mom. Who cares? Like, she's just going to throw the laundry wherever. I'm just going to leave the kitchen a mess. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then my dad's trying to clean it all up and stuff too. And he's trying to make sure everything stays even key. And it's like, it's kind of just funny to see how it changes from relationship dynamic to relationship dynamic. Because there is a difference when it comes down to your wife, your girlfriend, your brother, your sister, your whatever, like your parents, your kids. Kids are the worst because that's the thing. It doesn't matter what I say to my kids. They just keep doing whatever they're going to do anyway. It doesn't really matter how I want to say it. Just like you, right? And it is what it is. It's just you got to kind of exercise that stuff though. And you got to make sure that you protect your boundaries, make sure you're happy. If it's your house, I mean, I've told my kids no for certain things. I've locked certain things down and then felt bad after. I'm like, maybe I should just let him play the game. I don't know, man.
Yeah. They just wear you down. They're so good at wearing you down.
Yep. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But you got to practice. It's practice for sure.
I know. But I still, so the video that I did, obviously invite you guys to watch it. And it just does, it's pretty much what we talked about now. We went a little bit more in depth in our own personal lives about it. But if you can get into the habit of just practicing this, especially if you're a person like I was, who just couldn't say no. It was a yes. I'm telling you, when it was a yes, it was a hard yes on everything because I didn't want to let other people down. And it let me down. I mean, I remember, just feeling drained. And it's like, I have all this to do. Why did I say yes to doing this when I have all of my own stuff to do? And I got to do with my kids and all this. So it was really hard for me to transition. And it took me, again, like I said, 42, maybe when I started getting this, maybe a little bit, I don't know. But once I really got it, I kind of wish I learned this, back when I was in my 30s, or hell, even in my early 20s, and just practicing having boundaries. And that's the whole point. I didn't have boundaries. I didn't learn boundaries until I learned the power of no, and then started learning. And as I was implementing no, my relationships got better. They were more stern in the sense, but they knew, all right, no, I'm not going to ask him because he's very busy. He has a lot going on. I can physically see it. I'm going to go ask him something, I'm going to ask somebody else to do it, or what have you. And so no, the beginning of no is the beginning of your boundaries. Beginning of learning that word will start making amazing boundaries in your life. And that's kind of what I wanted to leave on my end about the power of no, and that little dangling word. It's just it's a noun, a verb, an adjective, a dangling participle. It can be anything. It's an amazing word.
It even works in multiple languages.
And it's a full sentence in one, because like you said, I used to say no and then explain myself. Now it's just no. Like, no, I'm not interested. And then that's a full sentence, complete sentence.
Yeah.
You don't need anything. Nope. So.
Well, that's the thing too, is I feel like the key to everything, the key to this whole thing is just to keep your best interest in mind. If it's not in your best interest, it's a no. It's just a no. There's no explanation needed. It's just, this is not in my best interest. This does not serve me. This isn't something that's going to move me forward on my goals. So it's a no. And it's just simply a no. It doesn't matter whether I want to, whether I should or whether I shouldn't, whoever the family member is, how close we are, how long we've been in a relationship together. None of that matters. All that matters is this thing that I'm saying yes or no to in my best interest? Yeah. Is it in my best interest for me to say yes? Is it in my best interest for me to say no? Because nobody else in the entire world has your best interest in mind outside of yourself. Right. So that's what I'll leave you guys with, is the fact that if it is in your best interest or not, that's always the thing that you got to ask yourself. Is this in my best interest to say yes? Is it in my best interest to say no?
Yeah. Have an amazing weekend, guys. I know it's Labor Day, so enjoy the extra Monday most people have off. So be safe, and we'll see you guys next Friday.
Absolutely. Get out there and practice those boundaries, guys. Thanks, guys.